Today's shiur begins 16 lines from the top of Daf Nun Zayin. Before we begin the actual shiur, there is a word or two of structure that we should note. First of all, the shiur begins at the point where you see a slash mark in the middle of the line, 16 lines from the top, Gufa Bo Aminei, Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shaya. You'll notice that there is a long marking, and we've indicated in the circled marking to the immediate right-hand side of the Gemara, Suhadaki Injury, and this takes you down to the bottom line. On the side of the Gemara, we have a topic heading, She'elasoi Shel Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan's question. Now, we should note that this was referred to in our previous shiur 16 lines from the top. The Gemara had said that Rabbi Yochanan had asked a question of Rabbi Shai, and Rabbi Shai did not answer the question. And the issue had to do with a Suhadaki that married the daughter of Gerim, the daughter of converts. A Suhadaki, we mentioned in our previous shiur, is a person, as a male, that experienced an injury to his reproductive organs. There are a number of different categories in this realm. Suhadaki, Krushavcha, they are cited in a pasuk in Dvarim, in Parshas Kiseitze, Dvarim Perichav Gimel Pasuk Beis, Lo Yavo Suhadaki Uchrus Shavcha B'Kal Hashem. So these are people that are forbidden to marry, we'll say, rank and file, traditional Jewish people, Jewish women, meaning women that come from a Jewish background. The issue comes up regarding a Suhadaki. Who is he allowed to marry? So there is a heter for him to marry a giores, a woman who is a convert. There are many details to this topic. They are discussed at length in the fourth parak of Maseches Kiddushin, Parak Asor Yuchsin. In today's shiur, we'll be alluding to some of the opinions on this topic, and here we're focusing on a Suhadaki who happens to be a Kohen. So the issue of a Suhadaki Kohen and his marriage to the daughter of Gerim, does that entitle her, as a result of being married to someone who is, technically speaking, is a Kohen, does that entitle her, as any other married woman married to a Kohen, to partake of the Truma tithe, a tithe given specifically to Kohanim, that which a Kohen purchases by way of slaves and animals, and that which the woman that he marries, are all entitled to partake of Truma. So Rabbi Yochanan's question, in fact, is, as we said, and this is what we've noted on the side under our topic heading, Suhadaki Kohen shenosa bas Gerim, a Suhadaki who happens to be a Kohen who married the daughter of Gerim. So this is a type of marriage that we're going to assume for the time being is a legitimate marriage. Mao shiachileno betruma. Does he enable her to eat truma? Now, this idea of this, let's assume that this is an acceptable marriage. This is in contrast to the sugya that we were dealing with in our previous shiur of a person, of a woman, or that's waiting for a marriage of Isur. Waiting for Kiddushay, or waiting for entrance into a matrimony of that which is prohibited. Now, that was discussed in our last shiur. Here we're focusing right now on this particular issue. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, we were told in our last shiur, had raised this question presented it to Rav Shai, and Rav Shai did not answer the question. We're going to see that story in this piece of Gamora, where Rabbi Yochanan presents the question to Rabbi Shaya. Rabbi Shaya doesn't answer the question. Someone else comes in and asks him, Rabbi Shaya, a question, and that someone else happens to be Reish Lakish, and Rabbi Shaya answers Reish Lakish's question, and the question is, why did Rabbi Shaya not answer Rabbi Yochanan's question? The Gemara will give us an answer to that. That Rabbi Shaya felt that Rabbi Yochanan's question had no simple solution, no straightforward solution. And the Gemara will then present the dilemma of Rabbi Shaya, why it wasn't easy for him to answer that question. So we'll start the Gemara. Gufa. Ba'amine Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shaya. Rabbi Yochanan asks of Rabbi Shaya, Suhadaki Kohen, a Kohen who experienced this injury to his reproductive organs, Shenosa Bas Gerim, that married the daughter of converts, Mahu Shiachileno Betruma. Can the woman partake of truma? Ishtik v'lo omar le v'lo midi. Rabbi Oshaya remained silent and didn't answer anything. We should point out, just to review a Rashi that was part of our previous shiur, 3 lines from the top. Rashi says, Bebas Gerim, the Kosovar Kahal Gerim, the community of converts, Lo Ikri Kahol. Now, we cited the pasuk just a few minutes ago, and here Rashi does the same. Ve'enon bichlal lo yovo ptsua daka. The pasuk, as we said, mentioned lo yovo ptsua daka hu shaflo b'kahal Hashem. They cannot enter the kahal. The kahal is the community or the assembly of Hashem. What is the assembly of Hashem? So, Jews that are descendants of Jews are considered the assembly of Hashem. The Bas Gerim, the daughter of converts, is not considered someone who is classified as the assembly. So they're Jewish, they're full-fledged Jews, but they're not the assembly of Hashem. Hence, the restriction of a P'tzua Daka doesn't apply to the daughter of Gerim. So this is a heter marriage. It's a permitted marriage. Since it's a permitted marriage, the Gamora feels there's room, Rabbi Yochanan feels there's room for at least raising this question. Since it's a permitted marriage, just like a regular Kohen marries his wife, who's not necessarily a Kohenes, she is entitled to eat truma. What is the story over here with this special marriage, P'tzua Daka Kohen, with the daughter of Gerim? Now, Rabbi Shai heard the question and didn't have an answer. L'soif, after some time, Asa Gavra Rabo Achrin, another great man came, Uba Minei Milsa Achrita, and asked of Rabbi Shai another issue. Upashat Lei, and Rabbi Shai answered the question. Umanu, who was that other great man? Reish Lakish. His name was Reish Lakish. Amar Lei, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiel Rabbi Shaya. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiel was aware of this give and take. Rabbi Yochanan's question not receiving an answer, Rabbi Shaya, and Reish Lakish's question yes receiving an answer. So Rabbi Yonasiya asked Rabbi Shaya, to Rabbi Yochanan lav gavra rabahu. Is Rabbi Yochanan not a great man that you didn't feel that he's important enough to receive an answer from you? Omar lei. So Rabbi Shaya says that my silence, my non-response has nothing to do with what I consider Rabbi Yochanan. Of course Rabbi Yochanan's a great man, but the kaboi minoi Milsa de les law pasri, asked of me a question that has no answer. Now, at this point, the structure is somewhat unique, and as we said earlier, all of this is one long discussion. Here, Rashi points out that the Gamora raises the question. Leman. According to whom is this question being asked? If you'll notice Rashi will say it's a quarter of the way down from the top, the beginning of the line in Rashi, Laman, Ilu Rabbi Yehuda, Hashas hu the Kaboi law. It's the Shas asking the question. It means the students of the yeshiva in which the Talmud was compiled. So the Shas is asking the question. Umefarish bi'ozil ad seifa upashta, and the Gemara will develop the question and eventually answer the question. The Gamora will resolve the question of Suhadaki Injury and his ability lahachil truma to the wife that he married, the Bas Gerim, but it's not Rabbi Shaya's response. So now, as we go on in the Gemara, first another structural note on the side under the Mivneh. The double underline represents Gimel Shlavim, 3 stages, levarer, to clarify, to investigate. Aliba Deman Shoal Rabbi Yochanan Es Sheilasu. According to whom did Rabbi Yochanan raise this question, or if you prefer, is this question to be raised? Leman. So the Gemara asks, as we said, the question that Rabbi Yochanan posed is a question according to which Tanaic authority. Now, the Mishnah in Maseches Kiddushin, Daf Ayin Zayin, is very worthwhile looking into. It presents a number of different opinions as to the marriage of Gerim and the children of Gerim as being puzzle with the kahuna. So it's well known that a convert, a woman who converts to kahuna, cannot marry a kohen. What about the children of converts? Can they marry kohanim? The Gemara here raises names that are based on the Mishnah over there, and it says, Leman, the question right now of the Suhadaki Kohen, being that he is a Suhadaki and cannot marry into the rank and file of the Jewish people, is this a possibility for him, this type of marriage with the daughter of converts? So the Gemara says, if the question is according to Rabbi Yehuda, well, bein b'kedushasei koi, bein lav b'kedushasei koi, lo achla. Whether or not the Suhadaki Kohen maintains his kedushas Kohen status, she, the Bas Gerim, is not going to be able to partake of truma. Let's take a look at Rashi. Across from here, Bein b'kedushasei koi, l'kaman b'perek ha'orel miboya alon. Later in the perek named Perek ha'orel, the question will be raised: Kohen Suhadaki, this very case of a Kohen who suffered the injury to his reproductive system, mahu b'giyores, can he marry a convert? We pointed out before, your standard Kohen cannot marry a convert. The question here is, b'kedushasei koi v'aser, does he maintain his kedushas kahuna or not? And if he does, he would not be allowed to marry a convert. V'hacha, here, bein b'kedushasei koi kohenas b'suhadaki, namely, bein b'kedushas kohen koi, whether he maintains his Kohen sanctity status, v'aser b'chol ha'asuros l'kuna, and as a result, he is a regular Kohen in that sense that he cannot marry any other kind of woman that is prohibited to the priesthood. For example, a divorcee or a chalutza. Bein lav b'kedushasei koi, v'eino muzhar milisa isha p'guma, whether you say the Kohen does not maintain his sanctity as a Kohen, and as a result he wouldn't be prohibited or proscribed from marrying the problematic women, lo achla, she, the Bas Gerim, is not going to be partaking of truma. So according to this, we're saying that within the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, even if the marriage is an okay marriage, on the grounds that's lav b'kedushasei koi, she will not eat. And now the Gemara, we go back to the Gemara text, and it breaks this down and analyzes. If the Kohen maintains his sanctity as a Kohen, the Kohen Psuadaka, Daha Amar, Bas Ger Zohar, Kebas Cholol Zohar. Rabbi Yehuda there in Maseches Kiddushin says that the daughter of a male convert is like the daughter of a Cholol Zohar. Just what is a Cholol? A Cholol is a child born from a Kohen who married a divorcee. The son that's born would be called a Cholol Zohar, a male Cholol. So the Tana Rebbe Yehuda says that the daughter of a ger is like the daughter of a Cholol Zohar and is not allowed to partake of Truma. If we take a look at the Rashi, the daughter of a Cholol is unfit to the priesthood. That's the name of the parak, the fourth parak of Kiddushin. The Kevon de Kedushosei Koi, and here we're working right now on the side that the Psuadaka Kohen does maintain his Kohen status. Lo ochla, she is not to eat from the truma. The amrinon harei zu psulolo, she is unfit to him. The asa'ah chalala b'vioso, and he has rendered her unfit through the intimacy that he has with her. So he won't entitle her to partake of truma. We continue. Ilav b'kedushasei koi. If the Psuadaka, as a result of his injury, loses his Kohen sanctity, Lo Achla, the Bas Gerim is not going to partake of Truma. The Ha Amrinon, we have an opinion. Kahal Gerim, Ikri Kahal. The community of converts is considered Kahal, is considered a community. We discussed this earlier, and we pointed out that a Psuadaka is not permitted to marry by virtue of the Torah, the pasuk in the Torah that we cited before. He's not permitted to marry he who is or she who is classified as Kahal. Kahal meaning a community. We're dealing, by the way, with halachic concepts, not with sociological concepts, a community of people, but there's a halachic category of people that are considered this legal status of being a kahal. So if you say that gerim are kahal, the psuadaka is not allowed to marry into kahal. We continue. V'i l'Rabbi Yossi, and if this question of Psuadaka Kohen, that's Nosa Bas Gerim, is raised within the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, well, then there's no question there either. Bein b'kedushasei koi, bein lav b'kedushasei koi, ochla. Either way you view the Psuadaka, she will be able to eat. If you say that the Psuadaka, maintains his Kohen sanctity status, she will eat. Daha Omar, af ger shenosa giyores bito ksheira lekahuna. According to Rabbi Yossi, even if both parents are converts, the girl, the daughter born from that union, is allowed to marry a Kohen. So here you'd have a Kohen with Kohen status marrying a woman fit to the kahuna, so everything's fine. So it's a straightforward Kohen marrying woman, entitling her to eat from Truma. And if you say that as a result of his being a Psuadaka, he loses his Kedushas Kohen status, Ochla, she will eat. Daha Omar, Kahal Gerim lo Ikri Kahal. If he loses his Kedushas Kohen status, the marriage nevertheless is permissible, she's not prohibited because she is a member of the Gerim community, and they're not called Kahal, therefore the marriage is permitted. And even though he doesn't have Kedushas Kohen status, that does not prevent her from being able to eat Truma. We point out, therefore, till this point in the discussion, that there doesn't seem to be any room to raise the question according to the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, nor according to the Tana Rabbi Yossi. Elo, and here you see we're at stage 3, Elo alibo dahai Tana, Disnan. There is room for raising the question according to the following Tana. Disnan. Rabbi Lezer ben Yankiv Oimer, a isha bas gerim loy sinose lekuhuna, a woman who is the daughter of converts shall not marry a kohen ad shetehei imo mi-Yisrael, until you have a situation where her mother is a pedigree Jewess. V'hachi komebayale, and the following is the analysis of the question of the Suhadaki Kohen and Mahulachil the Bas Gerim Truma. So we have again some new concepts, and we'll see how Rashi explains them. V'hachi komeba, thusly we ask, Ksherois misvasva ba v'ochla, oidilma kedusha misvasva ba v'loi ochla. We look in the Rashi. Alibo dahai tana komebayale l'Rabbi Yochanan. The original question that Rabbi Yochanan had raised is according to this Tana, Kagon the Imo Yisrael, and we have to emphasize that her mother was Jewish, so that you have a Jewish woman who had married a convert, and they produced a daughter, and now she is the one being married by the Suhadaki Kohen. The Rashi continues, Kshera kashrus isvasva ba uruya lekahuna. And if you say that kashrus has been added to her, so she would be fit to the kahuna. V'lav kedusha la'akruye kahal, but not enough sanctity to be considered kahal. And as a result of that, umuteres l'psuadaka, and therefore she's muteres to the kohen who received this injury. After all, the psuadaka cannot marry someone who's called kahal. So when you have a woman whose mother was Jewish, her father was a ger, what is the description of this daughter? Do we say that since her mother was Jewish, so she becomes kshera, allowed, permissible to a kohen? She's not considered herself a convert, which would be prohibited to a kohen. She is the daughter of a mother who's a pedigree Jewess, and her father was a ger, so she's considered kshera vis-a-vis kahuna. However, from her father's side, she still is not called kahal, and therefore the Suhadaki would be allowed to marry her. And she, if you say this, if you say kashrus is vasva ba, so she would be allowed to eat. Either way you look at it, even if you say that the kohen himself maintains his kedushas kahuna, harei zumu tereslo, she is allowed. As we said, she became kshera. She's allowed to the kahuna. Umishum suhadaki lo mitzur ba, and because of his injury, she is not prohibited to him to halo ikri kahal, because she's not considered a kahal. So that's one side of the possibilities. The other side is kedusha misvasva ba. Now we look at the Rashi. Ol dilma kedusha nami isvasva ba. Not only is she considered kshera, but she is considered holy, if you will. Kedusha, these are concepts, the translation isn't necessarily that important. It's just to recognize that kashrus is a concept and Kedusha is a concept. Now, if you say that Kedusha is also part of her, v'kahal ikri, as a result of that she would be considered kahal. She's not a straightforward convert, she's the daughter of a man that converted, but her mother was Jewish. And she, therefore, is considered kahal, the asura l'ftsuadaka v'lo ochla. And on those grounds, it would be a prohibited marriage, and therefore she would not be entitled to partake of the truma. The continuation of Rashi, and we have this in brackets, is an alternative approach, but Rashi, as you can see, after the end of the brackets, Rashi prefers the version we read. So now that the question has been presented, the Gamora itself proceeds to offer an answer. True, Rabbi Shaya, when asked by Rabbi Yochanan, did not offer an answer, but the Gamora does. And you can see we have a long answer marking. Ta Shma. Ki also Rabbi Acha bar Chinana Midaroma. When Rav Acha came from the south, Osa va'aisi masnisi biyada. He came and brought with him a Tanaic source. Minayin lepsuadaka kohen shenosa bas gerim shema'achila v'truma. From where do we know that a kohen who experienced the Suhadaki injury married the daughter of converts, that he can feed her truma? He entitles her to partake of truma. Shenema v'choyayin ki knek nefesh kinyan kasboi v'chule yoichal boi leman. Now this unnamed source is taught in accordance with whom? Ilema Rabbi Yehuda. If you were to think that's according to Rabbi Yehuda, Ha'omar, he already said, Bein b'kedusha seikei, bein lav b'kedusha seikei, loy ochla. Either way you view the Psuadaka Kohen, she is not entitled to eat. This was presented before in the Gemara. If he maintains his kahuna sanctity, he should not have married the daughter of a convert, because she is considered like the daughter of a halal. So on those grounds it would be a prohibited marriage. And if he doesn't maintain his Kedusha's kahuna status, he still should not have married her, because the Gerim are called kahal. And even though from the kahuna standpoint he doesn't have a restriction, but from the Psuadaka standpoint he is restricted. He shouldn't marry those people who are classified as kahal. So the Tanaic source that entitles the wife of the Psuadaka Kohen to eat from Truma could not be according to Rabbi Yehuda. Either Rabbi Yossi, Lama Likra, and if it's according to Rabbi Yossi, what would the Tana here have to cite the Pasuk for? Ha'omar, he already has, by way of rules, without resorting to a Xeris HaKos of a scriptural reference, he already knows Bein B'Kedusha Seikoi, Bein Lav B'Kedusha Seikoi, whether the Kohen maintains his kahuna status or he doesn't maintain his Kedusha's Kohen status. Ochla, she's entitled to eat, and we saw that as well above. If he maintains his Kedusha's kahuna status, that doesn't bother Rabbi Yossi, because a daughter of two converts that wedded and produced a daughter is acceptable to the kahuna. It's a good marriage. And if he doesn't have his Kedusha's kahuna status, so that doesn't prevent the marriage either, because neither from the kahuna standpoint nor from the Psuadaka standpoint, because the kahal of Gerim is not called a kahal. So only a kahal is restricted to the Psuadaka, not a non-kahal. So the question wouldn't have been posed according to Rabbi Yossi either. Or that is, this Tanaic source that cites a pasuk to entitle her to the truma wouldn't be according to Rabbi Yossi. Ela lav l'Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The question is according to as we saw before, his name in the source referred to above, Reb Elazar ben Yankiv, Ushma Mino, and we see from the fact that the Suhadaki is entitling her, the Bas Gerim, to eat from Truma, Kashrus Isvasva Ba V'Achla. Only Kashrus has been added to her resume, and hence she is allowed to partake of the Truma. It's an acceptable marriage. Kashrus meaning she's acceptable vis-a-vis the kahuna, and she's not considered kedosha, giving her kohol status, which would have posed a problem. Shma mina. So this is conclusive. So just to review, a ptsua daka kohen that marries a bas gerim, according to the Tana, Reb Elazar ben Yankiv, she is entitled to partake of truma. As you can see, there is a slash mark indicating that which follows is a new trend of thought. Now, for some of us, the sugya we just learned would appear to be very complicated. It's based on the fact that one is being introduced for the first time to brand new concepts. These concepts of kedushas kahuna, kashrus, kahal versus non-kahal. What is the status of a ger, of the bas gerim, etc. So all I can say is that in order to truly gain a grasp on this Gemara, one would have to, of course, review it several times. Before we continue, we have a topic heading, and the nosei on the side reads, Machlokes Rav u'Shmuel, a controversy between Rav and Shmuel, yesh chuppah l'psulos oiloi. Again, a concept, because we can translate is their chuppah is their marriage canopy, but it's a concept, it's a halachic status of the couple going under the chuppah after the man betrothed the woman through offering her money. The note on the side continues, Medubar b'kohen gadol shichnis almona bas kohen l'chuppah v'lo ba'al. That we're talking about a case of a kohen gadol who brought an almona, a widow, the daughter of a kohen, to the marriage canopy, but did not have intimacy with her. Ha'im ze poisla. Does this disqualify her mitrumas beis avia, from the truma that she was entitled to as a result of being the daughter of a kohen? So now maybe we should just point out that if the Kohen Gadol had actual intimacy with her, so that would affect her entire status, would make her into a halala, and a halala is not entitled to partaking of truma. That even though her father's a Kohen, but through the forbidden intimacy, that disqualifies her. However, that's not the case here. We're talking only about them having reached, we'll say, the chuppah stage, the marriage canopy stage. What effect does that have? So now the Gamora. Itma Rav Omar. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. Yesh chuppah l'psulos. Ushmuel Omar ein chuppah l'psulos. And we take a look at Rashi, even though we said this already. Rashi at the top line, Yesh chuppah l'psulos, kohen gadol shehichnis almona bas kohen l'chuppah v'lo ba'aleha, o me'ikara nami lo kidsha. This point that Rashi is adding is something that is discussed by the Tosfos at some length. So Rashi is adding, and we didn't mention this in the most accurate fashion before, but he, according to Rashi, he also did not betroth her beforehand. What we mentioned before is, in general, chuppah is that which follows betrothal. But here, he didn't do that according to Rashi's explanation. All that happened is the Kohen Gadol brought this widow, daughter of Kohen, under a marriage canopy, of course with marital intention, V'afilu hachi according to Rav, posla mitruma debein nosha, it disqualifies her from the truma of her family, from her father's house. The chuppah kiknisas be'ilo damya. Rav views chuppah very severely. It's, as far as he is concerned, it's like that's the same halachic import as intimacy. Shmuel disagrees. The Gemara continues. Omar Shmuel, umoida li Abba. Abba is the formal name of Rav. So when you see Abba in this case, you understand it's Rav. So that Rav will concede to me the position of leniency. Betinoikes pchusa mibas shalosh shonim v'yoim echad. If the Kohen Gadol was dealing with a girl less than 3 years old in a day, now, this kind of Gemara sounds unusual to many of us, unless you're very familiar with Masechtas from this Seder of Shas, the Seder Noshim. The possibility of a girl getting married is until she reaches adulthood, halachic adulthood, age 12 and a half, her marriage is in the hands of her father. Her father can make her, by accepting money from a choson, a suitor, she becomes married. So Rav will concede that if you're talking here about a girl, she's a widow even, because she had been married by her father before she reached age 3. That could be. And the husband died, so she's a widow, but she's under 3 years and a day of age. And we say, since intimacy is not recognized with a girl under 3, that too is a halachic concept. So too, since biyah is not formal, it's not physiologically, the biyah with a girl under 3, the membrane that exists in that part of the woman's anatomy that, generally speaking, is broken when we say she loses her virginity, under 3, that membrane is not said to be broken. So this concept of ein lo biyah is relevant to a girl under 3. So the chuppah would have no effect. So again, we're not talking about a case where there was actual intimacy. The Kohen Gadol did take her under a marriage canopy, but since biyah doesn't exist in this halachic framework, so the marriage canopy effect also doesn't exist. Omar Rava, now here we have a long point. Omar Rava, af anan nami tanina. We have also a Tanaic source that if intimacy doesn't ruin her, all the more so chuppah will not disqualify her. Bas shalosh shana v'yom echad miskadeshes b'biyah. We say that a girl who is 3 years and a day can be betrothed through the act of intimacy. V'im bo'alel yavam kana. And if a yavam, if she was the widow of a man who died leaving no children, and there's a surviving brother, and she's reached this age of 3 years and a day, the yibul marriage would be consummated with intimacy. V'chayoven olel mishum eishes ish. She's considered fully married, and therefore, if another man would have relations with her, he would be guilty of having relations with a married woman. U'metama is boyola l'tame mishkav tachton ke'elyon. And if she happens to be experiencing a female cycle, and the husband has relations with her while she is like that, so she affects him and is mitame him to the extent that any bed that he would lie on would have the din of a in other words, the bed that he lies on would be considered like an Elyonish Shel Zav. An Elyonish Shel Zav is something that's not metama other people, but it could be metama food. Niseis l'kayin oicheles betruma. If a girl of 3 years and a day marries a kayin, she eats truma. Bo aleha echad mikol hapsulim pasla. If anyone that's unfit to the kahuna, for example, a cholol, a mamzer, or if she was a widow and she had relations with a kohen gadol, pasla, it would disqualify her. And here the main thing Rashi adds, would disqualify her from truma of her father's house. In other words, she wouldn't be able to partake of that truma anymore. The Gemara then looks at this source, focusing on the opening of the source where we had dashed, underlined, Bas Shalosh Shanim V'Yom Echad, and it draws an inference. Bas Shalosh Shanim V'Yom Echad Hu de Mifsala Babia Mifsala B'Chuppah. When you're dealing with a girl that's reached 3 years and a day, that could be ruined, disqualified through intimacy, so then Chuppah could disqualify her. Under 3 years and a day, where the intimacy would not disqualify her, we'll say the forbidden intimacy would not disqualify her. Lo mifsala nami b'chuppah. All the more so, chuppah, which is a weaker institution, chuppah, all the more so, would not passel her. So that if you have a girl under 3 years and a day, and she happens to be, we'll say, the daughter of a Kohen, but she is unfit to the kuna. For example, she is an almona. An almona is also to a Kohen Gadol. She is not going to be disqualified through the chuppah, as we saw from this source, where even Bia would not have disqualified her. All the more so, chuppah will not disqualify her. Shmami, no, this is conclusive. As the Gamora continues, you can see on the last line, Yesh chuppah l'psulos, this concept of chuppah l'psulos comes under further discussion, but in the interest of preserving the Daf Yomi structure and not stopping a sugya in the middle, it's preferable for us to pause here.